Life doesn't give you what you wish for. It gives you what you plan for, work for, and stay disciplined enough to deserve. You see, we are the only creatures on earth who can imagine a better future, and the only ones foolish enough to never act on it. Isn't that something? Birds build nests by instinct. Beavers build dams without blueprints. But a human being, we can build dreams. We can architect a future out of thin air if we learn how to think properly about goals. But here's the problem, my friend. Most people never get past the hoping stage. They confuse dreaming with doing. They confuse inspiration with execution. And then they wonder why the years pass and the life they imagined never shows up. Well, today, we're going to change that. Today, we're going to bridge the gap between who you are and who you're capable of becoming, not with fantasy, but with philosophy and a plan. You know, it's a funny thing. Everybody wants a little more wealth, more health, more happiness, and there's nothing wrong with that. But wanting is never the problem. The problem is that most people live in the land of wishing. They sit under the stars and whisper, someday. But let me tell you something. I learned a long time ago, someday is not a day of the week. Wishing doesn't change your income. Wishing doesn't rewrite your story. Wishing feels good, but it doesn't build anything. I used to wish, too. Back when I was broke, pockets empty, promises broken, I had sit and wish I could be successful, that maybe one day things would turn around. But one day, I met a mentor who said something that shook me. He said, wishing isn't working. Thinking is working. Planning is working. I wrote that down because he was right. Nothing changed for me until I stopped wishing and started thinking like a builder. I stopped asking, what do I want? And started asking, what's my plan? It's not enough to want to be rich. You've got to design a path that gets you there. A wish is soft, but a plan has edges. It has dates and numbers. It tells you what time to get up in the morning. It tells you how many phone calls to make, how many books to read, how much to save, and where to invest it. That's thinking. That's planning. A man once said, he who fails to plan, plans to fail. That wasn't just a clever phrase, that was a law. If you don't put your dreams on paper with action behind them, they evaporate, they drift. That's why people can spend 10 years wanting more and still end up right where they started. I learned to set my goals the way an architect draws blueprints. Not vague, not emotional, precise, strategic. Because wealth doesn't respond to hope, it responds to habits. So I stopped wishing to be wealthy and started planning to be valuable. And wouldn't you know it, things began to change. The day you stop wishing and start thinking is the day your future starts taking shape. Clarity changed everything for me. Before I had it, I was busy, but I wasn't productive. I worked hard, but nothing moved. I had vague ideas like, I want to do better, or I want to make more money. But those weren't goals. Those were foggy wishes. And let me tell you, you can't hit a target you can't see. You can't chase success in a haze and expect it to land in your lap. The mind needs direction, just like a ship needs a map. Otherwise, it drifts, and drifting is a dangerous thing. Back when I was living in that small apartment, behind on the promises I'd made to myself, I thought effort alone would save me. I was waking up early, trying hard. But for what? It wasn't until I sat down and really asked, what do I want specifically, that the fog began to lift. Not, I want more income, but I will earn $50,000 this year by serving 200 clients. Not, I want to get healthier, but I will lose 15 pounds by June through disciplined training and clean eating. That kind of clarity changed how I walked, how I talked, how I used my time. You see, when you're clear about your goal, every decision becomes easier. You know what to say yes to. You know what to say no to. You stop getting pulled into everyone else's urgencies, and you start making progress on what actually matters. That's where confidence starts to build, not from achieving the goal, but from knowing exactly where you're going. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and philosopher, once wrote, "If you don't know where you are sailing, no wind is favorable." That's as true in business as it is in life. You can be surrounded by opportunity, but if you don't know what you want, none of it will take you where you need to go. So I made it a habit to define my goals with precision. I gave them numbers, deadlines, and meaning. And in doing so, I gave my mind a mission. The clearer the goal, the simpler the path, and the simpler the path, the greater the progress. When I first started on my journey, I thought that changing my circumstances would change who I was inside. I believed if I just made more money or lost some weight, everything else would fall into place. But life had a different lesson for me. You don't become successful because you act successful. You become successful because you believe you are. Asterisk. Asterisk. Your behavior is a reflection of your identity. And until you change who you see yourself to be, your actions won't last. Think about it like this. Your mind is like a thermostat. It keeps you at a temperature it believes is normal. If you want to change your results, you have to change the setting. I remember when I was struggling financially and kept saying, I want to be wealthy. But deep down, I was still thinking like someone who never had money. My thoughts and habits followed that identity. It wasn't until I started telling myself, I am a man who manages money wisely and creates value, that I began to act differently, budgeting carefully, investing thoughtfully, taking calculated risks. That shift in identity was the game changer. The ancient Greek philosopher Epictetus said, "We are not disturbed by things, but by the view we take of them." The same goes for ourselves. Your thoughts about who you are will shape your behavior. If you see yourself as someone who can't stick to a plan, you won't. If you see yourself as someone who finishes what they start, you will. I've seen countless people fail because they chase goals that don't belong to them, goals given to them by others, or goals based on trends and comparisons. When your goal isn't connected to your true self, it feels like a burden, not a passion. You lose momentum, you lose faith. So ask yourself, who do I need to become to reach this goal? What beliefs must I adopt? What habits must I make part of my daily life? When your goal becomes an extension of your identity, quitting isn't an option, it's simply who you are. And that's when real, lasting change begins. Desire alone won't carry you through the long haul. I've met many folks filled with passion and big dreams, but passion without structure is like a river without banks. It spills everywhere and leaves nothing behind. Desire feels good in the moment, but discipline is what builds empires. And discipline, I learned, is not some mysterious force. It's simply desire shaped by a plan and supported by habits. When I was starting out, I often found myself energized one day and discouraged the next. I realized that motivation would come and go like the seasons. But success demands something steadier, a framework that doesn't depend on how you feel. That's where structure comes in. Think about a builder constructing a house. He doesn't just hope the walls will stand. He lays bricks, one by one, following a blueprint. Likewise, your goals need a blueprint: daily actions, routines, and systems that make doing the right thing automatic. It's not about willpower every single day. It's about creating a life where discipline becomes the easiest choice. I remember the time I decided to change my financial future. I didn't just say, I want to earn more. I broke it down into smaller steps. Reading one book a month on business, making a certain number of calls each week, setting aside a fixed percentage of my income for investment. I put these into my calendar and made them non-negotiable. Over time, these small actions built momentum, and what once felt like a daunting climb became a steady ascent. Aristotle once said, "We are what we repeatedly do." Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit. The habits you build around your desire turn fleeting enthusiasm into unshakable discipline. Structure protects you on the days when motivation fades and makes success not a matter of luck, but of design. So if you want to move from wishing to thinking, from dreaming to doing, start building your structure today. Without it, desire remains just that, a wish. With it, desire becomes discipline, and discipline becomes achievement. When I was younger, struggling to find my way, I tried to push through with sheer willpower, thinking that hard work alone would get me there. But I soon learned that no matter how strong your desire, if your surroundings aren't built to support your goals, your progress will be slow, painful, and filled with distractions. Your environment is like the soil where your dreams are planted. If the soil is rocky and infertile, the seed struggles to grow. But when the environment nurtures the vision, it helps you flourish naturally. I remember when I committed to writing and speaking. I set up a small, quiet corner just for my work. No distractions, just the tools I needed close at hand. It might have seemed small, but that environment sent a clear message to my mind. This is serious. This is where I become the man I want to be. Benjamin Franklin wisely observed, "Tell me who you associate with, and I will tell you who you are." The people, the places, the habits around you, they all shape your thinking and your results. If you want to build wealth, you can't spend all your time in places where money isn't respected or valued. If you want to get healthy, your kitchen should be stocked with good food, not junk. If you want to write a book, your writing space shouldn't be cluttered with distractions. The great management thinker Peter Drucker once said, "What gets measured gets managed." And it's true. When you measure your efforts, you gain control. You see the gap between where you are and where you want to be. You start making informed decisions instead of blind guesses. You begin to optimize your time, your energy, your resources. Let me give you a simple example. If you want to save money, write down every expense. If you want to get fit, track your workouts and nutrition. If you want to grow a business, measure your calls, meetings, and sales. When you make these habits visible, you create pressure, healthy pressure that drives improvement. Without measurement, you drift. With it, you steer. The data becomes your friend, your feedback, your guide. So build the habit of measuring what matters and watch how your progress shifts from hope to certainty. As we come to the close of this conversation, remember this. Setting goals is not merely about dreaming or wishing. It's about thinking, designing, and committing to a process that transforms your life. The journey from wishing to thinking demands clarity, identity, structure, and resilience. It requires you to build a foundation so strong that when motivation fades, discipline carries you forward. It calls for an environment that supports your vision, a system to measure your progress, and the courage to rise every time you fall. Now is the moment to stop hoping and start planning. Take the pen in your hand and write down what you truly want, not vague desires, but precise, measurable goals that speak to who you want to become. Reflect deeply on the identity you need to adopt to live those goals. Build routines and habits that protect your ambition from the distractions and doubts that will inevitably come. Design your environment to make success the easiest choice. And when setbacks arrive, as they will, meet them with grit and grace, knowing that resilience is your greatest ally. Don't leave your future to chance or circumstance. Commit to thinking like a builder today. Start small, stay consistent, and watch how the life you once wished for begins to take shape right before your eyes. Your journey from wishing to thinking starts now. Make it count.